Good evening and welcome to this digitally enabled online meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, held on Monday, February 22nd, 2021. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the Deputy Clerk to note our starting time for the minutes as 7 p.m. Today's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after the meeting as an archive video. You might notice that I just kind of looked to the side to make sure that that was true. And I'm getting the thumbs up. That's good. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Thank you. Welcome to those who are joining us via the YouTube channel. Welcome to councillors and staff and delegations who intend to participate in tonight's meeting. At this time, as usual, I invite your decorum over the course of this meeting. I advise that I have attendance regrets tonight from Councillor Matt Richardson and Deputy Mayor Doug Kellam. Let's move first then to item 2.1 of our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. For the benefit of those unfamiliar with our council practices, provincial legislation requires councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item at the council table to declare this interest and remove her or himself from discussions and voting on the item. In accordance with recommended protocol at this time, I invite all councillors with perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have declared already in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session and to submit documentation to this effect in writing to the clerk. Councillors are further reminded that should a potential conflict appear to arise during the meeting, they may so declare and act at any point in the meeting. I've heard from a few of you, so I'll call on you, I guess, in alphabetical order. Councillor Anstett, welcome to tonight's meeting. You're up.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Tonight, I'd like to declare a pecuniary interest on item 5.4.1, the accounts, as my son attends the St. Mary's daycare, and also on item 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anstett. Councillor Behrens, welcome to the meeting. You're up next.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. I have submitted documentation to declare a conflict of pecuniary interest on the accounts, specifically the daycare accounts, as well as 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw, as I have grandchildren attending both the North Perth Spinrite Child and Family Center, as well as the St. Mary's daycare and after school programming at both locations. Thank you.
Thank you, and glad your family is making good use of our services. Next up is Councillor Johnston. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. I'd like to declare a conflict on item 5.4.2. As I'm an officer of a corporation that owns land on that drain, and correspondingly also item 13.1. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Johnston. Anyone further wish to make a declaration at this point in time? Okay, we're not seeing any evidence of that, so let's explain our virtual processes. Tonight I'll be systematically trying to seek consent from various councillors as movers and seconders of the resolutions and bylaws that will be put before us tonight. I'll do this alphabetically to some degree. Should a councillor not wish to respond to the request from the chair, they may say so, and I will move to the next name on the alphabetical list. Regarding speaking to our business councillors tonight will identify themselves through our conferencing technologies chat function. The clerk is assisting me tonight in maintaining a speaking order from that source. Councillors are allowed on their turn to deliver a primary question or comment and may make one supplemental without intervention from me. We will follow speaking order carefully, and any councillor wishing to have a second say will have to indicate again and go to the bottom of the speaking list. This is a normal process consistent with Robert's Rules of Order. Councillors are reminded that if I believe you're not audible, I will call on you. You don't have to ask to be heard. Councillors are further asked to maintain a mute state in the web conference until I have called upon you for a verbal reaction. Should any of your votes not show up in eScribe, our voting technology, I will call on you when things seem stalled to register your vote. At that time, take yourself off mute, answer yes or no on the motion, then return to mute. Regarding item 2.2 then on our agenda, I have a motion before me for the adoption of the agenda for tonight's meeting. It reads pretty much like that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. Can I start with Councillor Anstett? Will you serve as our mover for this one?
Yes, I would move that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Behrens, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I will second that motion. Thanks.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Let's have that vote. And I think with our absences, that is carried. Thank you. That brings us to item 3 on our consent agenda, the so-called consent agenda. These items are placed on our agenda because they are believed to be non-contentious, yet they require either council's recognition or action. Grouping them tends to expedite our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, or other action may do so. We have a busy one tonight. There are 12 items on our consent agenda, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Councillors, do any of you have a desire to extract any of these items for further discussion or action? If you do, please so indicate in the chat box of our technology. Clerk Perfeltz, anything? Okay, so let's move then to resolution for consideration here. That consent items 3.1 to 3.12 be received for information and the minutes of the February 8th, 2021 regular council meeting be adopted. Can I call on Councillor Duncan to be our mover for that?
Yes, I'll move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Johnston, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I would second that.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on the consent agenda, councillors? We're not seeing any indication, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. A little bit of voting magic there. That'll bring us next to agenda item number 4. We don't have any public meetings scheduled for this evening's council meeting, but we do have 2 delegations arranged for our meeting this evening. I'm just checking with the clerk to make sure that our delegations are present with us at this time. Okay. Okay, so one of our delegations has not yet arrived, which is fine. So what we'll do, council, with your indulgence, is we'll hear from the delegation for item 4.2. This is Mr. Perry Blank of the Headwaters Delta Waterfowl Chapter. And this group is seeking council's permission to continue the use of stormwater ponds for duck nesting projects. Mr. Blank, welcome to our council meeting. The floor is yours.
Hi, thank you for having me. 4 years ago, I got permission to install a nesting structure that with Delta Waterfowl. Installed a
Mr. Blank, can I stop you for 1 second? We're having a hard time hearing you. I don't know if you can turn up your microphone or we're not getting a very loud audio feed, and certainly I and Councillor Anstett are having some trouble hearing. So
I'll just maybe take these bit.
the challenges of our technology.
Okay, is that better?
Much better. Thank you.
Okay. As I was saying, about 4 years ago, we approached council last time to get permission to install nesting structures on behalf of Delta Waterfowl. These structures we have, with permission of the last council, installed before at the behind the school by the Steve Kerr Memorial Complex, as well as the pond on Tremaine by the St. Mary Catholic School. These structures have proven to be very successful over the past couple of years. They've allowed very successful nesting opportunities for these ducks. Of the 8 that we checked out this past season, I believe 6 were used and successful. The other 2 were unused. Putting about 12 to 14 new ducklings into the population. We're looking for is permission to continue maintaining these ducks nests, both the boxes and the nesting tubes, as well as install a few more ponds listed near Hutton Street, south of Hutton Street, and as well as the pond about Connor Drive and the pond off line 84 north side of the highway. As I mentioned in my letter, we are covered with insurance liability through Delta Waterfowl, all our volunteers. And we perform the maintenance during the winter months when it's froze up, just for ease of access. As well, we install the nesting structures usually after thaw, when water levels are safe to do so. So I guess, yeah, that's my spiel.
Thank you, Mr. Blank. Councillors, do you have any questions for our delegate tonight? Councillor Seiler, let's start with you. I think you're on mute, Terry.
Thank you, Perry, for the work that you're doing. I've had some conversations with different people, and I just had a conversation last week. This gentleman, he's making woodcock nesting for different people, and he said that these nestings that you're making is very beneficial to our municipality, and I hope you the wish and the best in your success, and thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Who's next, Pat? Councillor Anstett next.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Kasenberg, through you. Thanks, Perry, for your presentation. Very informative. And I just want to echo what Councillor Seiler has said. I know you talked a little bit about the volunteers that you have. How many man hours are you thinking that you spend every season maintaining and installing these houses?
A rough guess off the top of my head would be probably close to 80 to 100 man hours each season right now with the current boxes we have. Now that would be across the board, the other ones we have. So the ones we have in Whistle, currently in Pond, I'd say we probably have close to 20 to 30 man hours for those nesting projects right now, and we're hoping to double that with your permission.
No, that sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're not seeing any other councillors expressing interest in asking questions or making comments. Last chance, council, on this delegation. Okay, thank you, Mr. Blank, for your presentation. Council, we have a draft resolution pertaining this matter. The request was fairly straightforward, I think, and so staff has prepared a resolution in support of this, if you're willing to entertain that. Let me read that into the minutes here. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the request from Perry Blank, Chair of Headwaters Delta Waterfowl Chapter, for the continued use of municipal stormwater management ponds for duck nesting projects. And I assume that's at their discretion in terms of the addition of the new ones that were described tonight. Can I call on Councillor Rothwell? Will you serve as our mover for that one?
Also move.
Thank you. And Councillor Seiler, you'll be our seconder for that one?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Any discussion or debate on this matter? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Look at how that works, Mr. Blank. You come for a few minutes, a little magic happens. Congratulations. We wish you much success with your continuing conservation efforts in this manner. Okay. So thank you again, Mr. Blank, and if you're welcome at this point to exit the meeting. I'm sure the rest of this is not nearly as exciting for you. Is Mr. Mon on the line with us at all? If he is, would he take himself off mute and say hello? So we're not seeing our other delegate at this point in time, Council. I think what that means is we'll move forward and we'll make a discretionary decision should he arrive a little bit later in the meeting. But at this time, he's not made his presence known to us. So let us turn our attention then to reports from departments and key staff. Let's start with item 5.1, reports from the CAO's office. And to begin, we have item 5.1.1, which brings forward to council a report on route updates for the community transportation pilot project. I'm going to call on North Perth CAO Chris Snell to walk us through this. Welcome tonight, Chris.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. As mentioned, the first report is dealing with the community transportation pilot project. The project has now moved into the full service model with the Stratford, St. Mary's, London route now being in full service. Just due with the pandemic, the 50% discount has been continued up until March 31st, 2021, and will be reevaluated at that time. As council's aware, we have the bus stops at the library branch in Listowel Technologies, the Elma Memorial Community Center in Atwood, and the Elma Logan Rec Complex in Moncton. Really, the purpose of tonight's report is to give a brief update, but also look at the change of Route 1, which is the Kitchener to Listowel route. Based on feedback and observations from the customers, we're proposing to change the route from direct Listowel to KW to more of a loop, which does allow us to put back in the St. Jacobs stop, and does also permit us to have a bus stop for this route in Atwood. So in theory, a person can take the bus directly from Atwood to the KW area. So it would be operating more as a loop. And after examining the stop times and locations, really the only location or stop time that's drastically affected is the change to Conestoga Mall. It just arrives at Conestoga Mall a little later than originally proposed. But considering that stop is mostly, we suspect, for people wanting to do shopping or excursions outside of the community, I don't see that as a drastic concern. And unless somebody has any concerns, we'll be asking the city of Stratford to make the route change. So that's really the report on an update on the transit project.
Thank you, CAO Snell. Council, any questions or first comments on this matter? Okay, we're not seeing any. So I have a resolution for our consideration then, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receive the report entitled community transportation pilot project route updates as information. Let me just check in with CAO Snell. You're saying that we would ask after this meeting for the route change that's been proposed. So do we need this resolution to be a little firmer than this, just out of curiosity?
Not really. It's because it's not our project. The city of Stratford is basically setting the routes, although they are and have so many times that they'll take direction from North Perth on this. So, I mean, I said I'd take it tonight for information, and if there was any feedback, I would get back to them. So it's really the discretion of council if they want to make the resolution a little stronger, but I don't believe it's necessary in this case.
No, that's great. Thank you, CEO Snell. Let me read it again then. That the Council of Municipality of North Perth received the report entitled Community Transportation Pilot Project Route Updates as Information. Can I call on Councillor Andreessen to be our mover for that one?
Yes, I'm happy to make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Anstett, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I would second that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate, Council? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. And we're missing Councillor Rothwell. Councillor Rothwell, what say you? There we go. It caught up. So that is carried. Thank you. Let's move to item 5.1.2. This brings forward the council report suggesting that the council approve the introduction of a new position to the corporation's organizational chart and to execute recruitment actions for the hire of a manager of facilities. This matter was reviewed and considered by the Human Resources Committee of Council. I'm going to call on CAO Snell again to present. Go ahead.
Thank you again, Council. Actually, tonight with us is Jen Robinson, the HR coordinator, so she's going to present this report.
Good evening, Mayor Kathenberg and Council. Tonight we're bringing forward the manager of facilities position. In 2019, the director of recreation retired from the organization, and at that time we put in place an interim structure within the recreation department while we waited for some key studies to be completed, namely the strategic review process and the Perth County Shared Services Review. So while we waited for those studies to be completed, we had an interim acting manager of recreation, Amy Gangle, performing that role throughout 2019 and 2020. In January of 2021, we successfully hired Amy Gangle as our manager of programs. That position combined children's services, community programming, as well as the recreation component of our community programming into a new department. So with Amy successfully taking on that position, we're looking to fill that component of the position that was in that interim structure. So we also have throughout 2020 talked about a draft organizational vision, and in that vision we had proposed a facilities department. And that's what we're bringing forward tonight, the manager of facilities position to spearhead that facilities department within the organization. So that department would have a holistic focus on municipal facilities. So really have a framework and a foundation to look after maintenance and repair and upkeep of all of our municipal facilities, where in the past we've mainly focused on recreational facilities. It would also include our recreation and aquatic facilities. The cemetery department would be moved from Public Works into this area. It would look after the care of Perth Meadows, as well as trails, parks, and green space. The current recommendation would be to approve the manager of facilities position. At this point in time, we are not looking to change any of the staffing levels that are originally still within that department. We will wait for this position to be filled and come back with a recommendation as to whether or not staffing levels are adequate. At this point, I believe they are. So we have included this position within the 2021 budget, and we are looking for council support tonight to approve the position, add it to the org chart, and to recruit for it as soon as possible. So I would be happy to answer any questions at all about the position, the job description, or anything else that anyone has.
Thanks, Ms. Robinson. Council, first comments or questions on this matter? Councillor Anstead.
Thanks, Mayor Kasenberg, through you. Thanks, Jen, for your presentation. Just a quick question. If this was to be approved tonight and you were to start recruitment, aside from the municipal website, were there any other avenues you were going to use to post? Thank you.
Sure, thank you. We generally do, our general recruitment practices are tailored at our municipal website. We feed that link to Indeed. We use Opportunity Lives Here, the Perth County Job Recruitment Board. And I would also target, and I'm sorry, Neil, I do not have the specific websites or associations. There's a Recreation Facilities Association that I would target through ORFA, as well as I would look for any facilities or that type of job boards that would be appropriate.
Thank you. Supplemental, if I may, Mayor Kasenberg.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just AMCTO, I believe, would be another one, Jen, to possibly consider, and also municipal world, just being that this is probably going to be a potentially difficult position to fill. That's what I would recommend. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Anstead, for your expertise there. Who's next? Councillor Andreessen's next.
Yes, through you, Mayor Kasenberg. Thank you very much, Ms. Robinson, for your report. And I guess I just have a wondering. We've been taking a look at department workload and really taking a look at projects and how to perhaps streamline things so that we don't have as much overtime. I am anticipating that this position could indeed help the workload of our staff. Would you anticipate that as well in terms of hiring of this position so that the maintenance and the upkeep of buildings could be maintained and other projects could happen that our staff need to focus on instead? If you could comment on that, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Sure. Yes, I do think that this position would be able to help assist in streamlining our facilities focus, especially right now when we have our senior staff involved in the upkeep of the buildings that they're inhabiting. They are not a facility expert. So when we bring somebody into the organization that can have that expertise and that focus, as well as perhaps preventative maintenance software or something that we can keep up on things and be preventative in things rather than waiting for them to crumble and fall apart. I think that we will have a good handle and the ability to streamline and assist staff in having some workload pressures eased.
Thank you so much, Jen. I really think that this is an important move for our municipality and something that's going to help protect our, our facilities and our assets. Thank you so much.
Next up is Councillor Seiler.
Thank you, Mayor Todd, and thank you, Jen, for your report. I guess my question is around our Perth Meadows there. How would this work with Perth Meadows? Would we keep what we have? Like we have Karen there working now, running, and we have our cleaners there, and we have our board. So would we keep that all in place, and the facilities manager would be look over what we're doing now? Is that how that would be?
I'll answer as best I can that question for you, Terry. I'm not certain that the board might have some involvement in how that all plays out. But my vision would be that the manager of facilities would oversee what's happening at Perth Meadows. There might be some, again, streamlining of processes, Karen has been performing that role again on an interim basis as we've waited to figure out the permanency of it. But there certainly would be somebody performing that role. And I think that manager of facilities would be able to determine whether what we're doing right now is efficient or if there should be some tweaks to it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, that appears to be all for the first comments and questions list. So I have a resolution for our consideration, Council. It reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approve the position and job description of Manager of Facilities, and that Human Resources begin the recruitment and selection process for this position as soon as possible. I'm going to jump around my alphabetical order here because I seem to recall that Councillor Duncan had a fondness for this idea. Councillor Duncan, will you serve as the mover for this one?
I certainly will move this.
Yeah, thank you. I thought you might like that one. And Councillor Behrens, will you serve as a seconder?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. All right, Council, discussion, debate. I think this is a very exciting opportunity for the organization to bring in a skill set and to really gain and acquire additional focus on our facilities and our assets. So to me, this is an important step forward in the organization's evolution. I know that it's not always prudent or easy to figure out which staff to add, but this one really does feel like a big win to me, so I intend to vote in favor. Councillors, any further comments? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried unanimously. Okay. Onward. Our next item is 5.1.3. Council is provided with a report suggesting that we direct and authorize the CAO to enter into a grant amendment agreement with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities for the purposes of funding for the climate change staff grant. Been in the news a little bit lately. I'm going to call on CAO Chris Nell to update us on this matter.
Thank you, Mayor. As Council is aware, at the February 1st meeting, North Perth Council approved the extension of the contract for the climate change coordinator and enter into a local partnership agreement with our 6 other partners for the project. Since that time, staff have received communication from FCM regarding the potential extension of the grant program, extensive purposely. Really, the extension is to ensure that all FCM grant recipients receive their full 2-year obligations or commitment under the grant. The agreement was signed with FCM basically February 28th of 2019. However, we weren't able to hire our coordinator until April of 2019. So we are a couple months short of receiving the full 2-year term. And that was not uncommon across many of the grant recipients. In fact, some of them were well lagging into summer of 2019 before they got their staff hired. FCM was looking at making sure that all grant recipients receive the full 2-year grant. And so therefore, that would be sort of the first option, is that they would basically continue with the grant program as it exists today until April of 2021. However, they have not received complete authorization from the federal government for that extension, just based on the federal government's year ending March 31st, 2021. And so there really is a subsection to the agreement tonight that says if it's not extended beyond March 31st, they'll give us the full grant money for basically the 11 or the 23-month period, and we would be able to spread that out over the previous part of the grant. So either way, the agreement tonight does allow us to receive the full funds from FCM in the original grant application, and that's really what tonight's amendment detail structures. And because of that, the contributions from the partnering municipalities will be less than the 8,800 that we discussed on February 1st. But I don't know the exact number based on how this unfolds with either Amendment A or Amendment B. But I'm willing to answer any questions if the council has any. Thank you.
So we like opportunities to save a little bit of money. That's not a bad thing. Let's have first comments or questions from council. Are we seeing any, Clerk Fairfields? No, we're not seeing any. Okay, so I have a resolution for our consideration that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth authorized the CAO to enter into a grant agreement with FCM for the municipality's Climate Innovation Program, Climate Change Staff Grant Funding on behalf of the municipality. And I call on Councillor Johnston to be our mover for this one.
Yes, I would so move.
Thank you. Councillor Rothwell, will you serve as the seconder for this one?
I'll second the motion, yes.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. That's odd. It didn't show up on our screens in council chambers, but that is carried according to the record provided from the voting software itself. Let's move on then to item 5.1.4. This brings to council a recommendation endorsed by council's Human Resources Committee to extend various benefits to municipal employees who continue to work full-time for us between the ages of 65 and 70. I'm going to call on CAO Snell to explain this one too, I think, or you can redirect as needed.
Thank you again, and Jen will be presenting this report. Thank you.
Thanks. Welcome, Jen. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So our current benefit policy is with Equitable Life, and it's managed through our benefit advisors, Donnelly Management Advisory Services Limited. I'll refer to them if further in this presentation as DMASL. So with the current termination of our benefit plan at age 65 in 2021, it has became slightly problematic for us in the fact that we've had two staff members, or will have two staff members who are currently enrolled in benefits reach that age. So we do offer benefits to part-time staff as well as full-time staff. Part-time staff are eligible to participate in health and dental benefits after they reach a certain hours worked threshold. So with the elimination some years ago of mandatory retirement practices, benefit policies had language in them that encouraged benefits to terminate at age 65. With the elimination of those mandatory retirement practices, benefit plans haven't done a very good job of keeping up with the change in times. So we did have a request from one of our approaching age 65 staff members if the municipality would give consideration to continuing benefits for those staff who are enrolled in them and do continue to work. We have reached out to DMASL. They have confirmed that we are able to pick the retirement age or the termination age of our benefits, so it is possible to change that. And I am just bringing that information forward to you. So we are a member of a benefits consortium. Throughout Huron and Perth County, most municipalities belong to this consortium, and we have very similar benefit plans. In 2020, two of those consortium members did approach DMASL to also consider changing benefit ages to termination of 70. The changes that they made are the changes that I'm also recommending tonight, if council so agrees, and that's that health and dental benefits terminate at age 70 for both full-time and part-time employees who are enrolled in the plan. Employee life, accidental death and dismemberment, and dependent life would change to a termination age of 70, but have a 50% reduction in the benefit at age 65, and that long-term disability continues to terminate at age 65, less the short-term disability elimination period, which is typically around 118 days before the employee turns 65. We have budgeted in 2021 benefits for all eligible staff, so it really doesn't have any financial implications into how the budget was presented for 2021. So just looking for council to consider making this change, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Ms. Robinson. Council, first comments or questions? Okay, we're not seeing any indication of that in the chat window. So I have a resolution then for our consideration. It reads as follows. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth requests DMASL change our current benefit policy with Equitable Life to allow the continuation of benefits as follows. Health and dental benefits continue until the age of 70 for eligible part-time and full-time staff, and life, AD&D, and dependent life continue until the age of 70 for full-time staff with a 50% reduction at the age of 65. Can I call on Councillor Seiler to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I'll move that. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you. And Councillor Andreessen, would you second this?
Yes, I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate on this one? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. And that moves us along to item 5.1.5. This brings to council an amendment to the North Perth Fees and Charges Bylaw. This is to implement changes in fees associated with various planning and development fees. Council will recall our efforts in addressing the creation of a single planning service for Perth County. Some of the effort during the process in which I participated was to establish new fees, or revised fees, I suppose, and charges with a guiding principle, costs to be fully covered by developers and no longer subsidized for land planning matters. This action is associated with that effort and sets the stage for a March 1st, 2021 introduction of a single planning service for the County of Perth. I'm going to call on CAO Snell to offer a few more comments.
Thank you again, Mayor. Actually, that was a very good summation by the Mayor on the process so far. And as you said, the working group did do some analysis and comparison with surrounding municipalities on planning fees, and also did sort of an hourly summarization of the efforts put in from both the county and the lower tiers on planning applications, and did arrive at the recommendations for new fees. And as the Mayor said, these fees are intended to cover the true costs of planning applications and not have them subsidized by through the tax levy. Certainly, this is a significant jump in the fees, so just want that to be certainly noted, and staff does recognize that as well. The new add to this also too is that for county application fees, also the municipality will also be receiving basically a credit or reimbursement on their time spent on application fees like draft plan of subdivisions or consent applications, which aren't reflected in our bylaw necessarily, but will be done at the time that the county reconciles the planning costs under the new planning model. So I can answer any questions council may have, but in the draft schedule, or it does show the new fees as well as what the current fees are for the planning applications. And certainly, if anybody has any questions, I can answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, CAO Snell. So it's time for first comments and questions, and Councillor Barnes is first.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. And this through you to CAO Snell, just to ensure that I'm reading it correctly, Chris. So if I needed an official plan amendment, I would pay total fees for that of $31.72. But then sometimes with an OP, you need zoning, I would pay an additional $29.46. Is that correct?
That is correct at this time. One of the things that I forgot to mention is that we do and are planning on reviewing these fees within the 6 months of implementation. So I have asked staff to track their hours just to add additional hours. But one of the things that's already been noted is that we should be looking at also sort of a combination fee for those two applications.
Councillor Rothwell is next.
Thanks, Mayor Todd. Through you to Chris, thanks for the report. In terms of the actual process, is that one check using Councillor Barron's sample for an official plan amendment at the county level? So is that one fee of $31.72 submitted with the application to the county? Is that correct?
Yes, that's how that would work. And then the county treasurer is going to reconcile the amount of applications. So they would rebate us the $450 on those applications and then charge us for the zoning bylaw fees that we would be collecting, if you understand that process.
Yes, I do. Thank you. And just related, and I do have a supplemental, but related to that, is HST included in these fees?
I believe so, yes.
Thank you. And the last point, I see we're including both county and local application fees. And I note down further on the table, when we're talking about part lot control, I do know that the county does have a fee there. And frankly, I think it should be included if we've included all the other ones. I suspect it's $500 per lot created, but perhaps staff will want to check that out if we are trying to include all the fees so that it's inclusive as it is for OP zoning and minor variance. Thank you.
Yeah, so we had some discussion about this at the staff level. We didn't include all the fees. We did include the official plan amendment just because it's one that's used fairly commonly and because it's the same as the list award fee right now, and that will be transitioning once the new official plan comes into place. One of the things I'm also suggesting or recommending that the planning working group look at also is almost one municipality, preferably the county, would look after the schedule of fees, and that we would all be directed to that website or schedule of fees for all the fees, similar to one of our neighboring counties has in process. So I will take that comment, Councillor Rothwell, into consideration as we move forward, because I think it's a valid one.
Thanks very much. I appreciate the suggested way of doing this, and certainly if all the fees were the same across the board, which I suspect they should be, it would be advantageous to have one-stop shopping. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions or first comments from councillors? Okay, well, let's leap ahead here. We have the recommendation for consideration. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth approved the 2021 Planning and Development Service Fees Schedule E, Bylaw 160-2015, and that Bylaw 21-2021, that's almost a tongue twister, Bylaw 21-2021, being a bylaw to amend Bylaw 160-2015 Fees and Charges Bylaw, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Anstett to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I would move that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Behrens, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Else anything? Okay, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Brings us to agenda item 5.2. This is reports from the clerk's department. For item 5.2.1, this council is invited to exempt a property from part lot control in order to facilitate the creation of two separated lots in a project developed as a semi-detached residences. I'll ask North Perth planner Sean Yilmaz for brief comments. Welcome, Mr. Yilmaz.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor Kasenberg, members of council. The applicant is seeking approval from North Perth Council to pass a bylaw which will effectively exempt subject property from the part lot control provisions of the Ontario Planning Act. If exempted, the applicant will be permitted to establish two individual lots of record. Each lot will have one dwelling unit of a semi-detached dwelling. The property is described as Lot 16 of Registered Plan 161 in the Lestoul Ward, and is municipally known as 755 John Street West. The property does consist of the newly built semi-detached dwelling. The western parcel, which is part 1 and part 3, is 404 square meters, and the eastern parcel, which is part 2 and part 4, is 402 square meters, meeting the required lot area. Both parcels have frontage along John Street West and have individual service connections to municipal servicing. The subject lands are within the residential 2 zone. This zone permits a variety of residential uses, including the semi-detached dwelling. Both units meet all other provisions and regulations of the North Perth zoning bylaw. The removal of part lot control to establish lot lines between two units of a semi-detached dwelling is an accepted method of lot creation under the Planning Act. As such, it is staff's recommendation that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approve the application by Kevin Gottfried for the exemption of part lot control. Thank you.
Councillors, any questions or first comments on this matter? Okay, we're not seeing any. So we have two items here to address. The first is a resolution for our consideration. It reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approve the application by Kevin Gottfried for the exemption of part lot control on property described as Lot 16 of Registered Plan number 161, Listowel Ward, 755 John Street West, Municipality of North Perth. If the proposed bylaw is adopted, it should be forwarded to the County of Perth for approval. And I call on Councillor Duncan to be our mover for that one.
Yes, I'll move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Johnston, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I would second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? If seeing none, let's have that vote. And we'll call that one carried. And next we have the bylaw. Reads as follows: bylaw number 20-2021, being a bylaw to exempt from part lot control, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Rothwell to be our mover for this one?
I so move.
Thank you. And Councillor Seiler, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on the bylaw? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is also carried. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mr. Yilmaz. Let's move on then through our agenda here. We have no report this evening from our manager of programs as item 5.3, which brings us to item 5.4, reports from the Treasury and Finance Department. As item 5.4.1, finance staff has brought forward for council review the accounts as of this day, February 22nd, 2021. I'll note, as we've heard earlier, that some councillors have declared a potential pecuniary interest in this item and will absent themselves from consideration and voting. Are there any questions about this report for staff? Please indicate in the chat window. Okay, we're not seeing any, so I have a resolution for our consideration that reads as follows: that the following summary of accounts be received by council for information. The total is $843,405.84. And I call on Councillor Andreessen to be our mover for this one.
Yes, I'll make that motion, Mayor Kaysenberg.
Thank you. And Councillor Duncan, will you serve as our seconder for this one?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? So let's have that vote. And that is carried with 6 votes in favor. Next up is item 5.4.2. Council is asked to authorize the construction of the Drager Municipal Drain. Ms. Hale, any comments on this one? I assume Fran is with us tonight. Any questions?
I am. Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg, members of council. The Drager Drain has been deemed complete, and at this time we'd like to bring to council the final and actual numbers for the drain, and therefore amend the bylaw under 17/2021 at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. Any questions or first comments from council about this drain? Right, we're not seeing any, so we have a resolution for consideration that bylaw number 17-2021 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 136-2015 for the construction of the Drager Municipal Drain be introduced, read and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Anstett to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I would move that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Behrens, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I will second that motion. Thanks.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. And I believe that's carried with Councillor Johnston abstaining for purposes of pecuniary interest. So that's carried. Thank you. Let's move on to the next one. This item 5.4.3, another drain. This is the Johnston Barker Municipal Drain. I guess no relation to Councillor Johnston. Ms. Hale, comments? Any questions about this?
Similarly, this drain has been complete, and the actuals are outlined in the report for council consideration. I didn't mention it to the prior one, but they're both drains are under the estimates, so that makes it a little easier to move forward with the billings and requesting you consider bylaw 18/2021 this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. Any questions or comments from councillors participating in this one? All right, so I have a resolution for our consideration then, that bylaw 18-2021 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 87-2017 for the construction of the Johnston Barker Municipal Drain be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Johnston, ironic, to be our mover for that one?
Yes, I would move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Rothwell, will you serve as our seconder?
I'll second the motion.
Always nice to have drains named after your family. Okay, any discussion or debate? I shouldn't make wisecracks like that, I'm sure. All right, seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried as well. Thank you. Let's see here. Item 5.4.4, Finance staff has brought forward for council review a report entitled Accounts Receivable Interim Policy Review Update. Ms. Hale, do you want to make some comments on this one?
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. I know council has always been quite interested to see how we're doing, especially with regard to our current situation, our residents dealing with the impacts of COVID. And one of the indicators we've been looking at has been our accounts receivable. And so tonight I'm just bringing an update to council just to have a look at where we're at, to look at pre-COVID numbers. We're getting to the end of that time where it's been almost the year. And so wanted to just take a look and see where we're at. In terms of our general receivables, we are in much better shape at the close of 2020 than we were at the close of 2019. And looking at this particular time, there's a few factors with that regard, and one of them is some dog tags, some developer charges, and so the general ones, we find that there's a substantial difference there. Our water and our wastewater billing were about $98,000, almost $99,000 less than we were last year. We have changed the timing a little bit of our billing, but we're talking about a couple days, so I'm not sure that's the majority of it. We seem to be in good shape, and especially in consideration of the additional customers that we've added, it even makes it in better shape. Our property taxes, we are showing a bit of a increase over last year, but again, we've had a number of increase in customers that would warrant this, as well as we sent out some substantial supplemental taxes towards the end of last year. And I'm sure that's been a little bit difficult for some of those ratepayers who are catching up. They're pretty astute when someone buys a new house and they know that they're not fully taxed. They have been making inquiries, and our staff have been working with our ratepayers to make sure that they're aware that the billings for taxes will be coming, and working out payment plans, that sort of thing. So all in all, we feel that we're in pretty good shape. I do think, though, that the March installment will be more of a telltale situation. And I would like, if council would like me to bring it back, something back in mid to late April, just to bring council up to date in terms of where we are at that time, because I do feel that that installment for taxes will make a difference. As council might remember, we've substantially lowered the principal and interest that we charge on those accounts, being a contribution to helping our ratepayers endure the impacts that they've been incurring with COVID. And so at this point in time, I would try to answer any questions that I possibly could, or take direction from council as to what you would like to see next, with keeping an eye on these parameters.
Thanks, Ms. Hale. Council, I mean, I think, you know, where we sit right now, we have a policy that's in place. Ms. Hale's report and recommended resolution does not suggest that we change that policy at this time with regards to the late charges, interest penalties for late tax payments. So we're not seeing a recommendation from staff about that, but that's certainly at your discretion. Does council have any wish to consider any measures, either pro or con, with regards to our approaches to late payments and the penalties and interest thereof? Councillor Ronco.
Thanks, Mayor Todd, and a question through you to Fran. Thanks for your report, Fran. I certainly agree with your comments there. A wait and see approach is probably the best, and I'm certainly in favor of hearing sort of updated report after the March date. My question specifically is the approximately $40,000 that's of loss of revenue or to offset of the penalty and interest adjustments that we've made. Now, is that something that is offset by the funds that we receive from the province to offset some of the COVID from their COVID funding, or is that just we're taking that hit on our own? Thank you.
We can apply this lack of revenue in this particular situation based on the fact that it's COVID related from that funding. However, we were able to manage it within our budget last year without having to access that. And certainly we're going to be spending every cent the province has provided us in relieving some of the COVID impacts for our own operations for the money they've provided us. So I'd have to say the hardest hit department, of course, as council's aware, is recreation, and they've done a great job of trying to rebound from any impacts that they've had as well. But yes, the short answer would be yes, and I think we'll just take money wherever we can with efficiency savings or staff savings as we go along to cover some of the additional costs. And that definitely could be one of them that we'd use for that grant money.
Thank you.
Okay, we're not seeing any other questions on this. Fran, let me ask this perhaps bold question. Have we had any ratepayers approach us and say, I just can't pay my property taxes at this point? I don't see a way out of this.
I'm sorry, could I ask you to repeat the question, Mayor Kiesenberg? I missed it.
Okay, is there a problem? Am I not being heard well? Okay, so my question is a very blunt one, and that is, have we had any ratepayers approach and indicate that they just can't pay their property taxes and they don't see a way to be able to do so in the near future?
We have not had anyone express their situation like in those terms. We have had two particular ratepayers who have indicated that they are not happy that we've charged them some penalty. And so that might be something that council wants to consider and would like it to be removed at this time. But those are the two that staff have made me aware of. I'm sure there's been some more casual resistance to wanting to pay penalty because no one does want to pay that. But those are the only two very specific customers have said that they are not wanting to pay the penalty for. And one of them wasn't taxes, it was water and wastewater, but we have had one on taxes as well. So my short answer would be not substantial. Just two come to mind at this time.
Okay, thank you. I have a resolution for our consideration at this point that doesn't go any further than receive this report. Let's put that resolution on the floor, and if council decides it would like to do something more, it's welcome to interject that into the debate. So the resolution for our consideration is the council of the municipality of North Perth receives this report, accounts receivable interim policy review update for information. Can I call on Councillor Seiler to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I will so move. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Andreessen, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate, council will, on this one that different from what has been proposed, which is to stay the course until our next report on this matter, which the treasurer has suggested will be in April, near the end of April. Okay, we're not seeing any indication of that, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. Next up is item 5.4.5. Council is asked to authorize temporary borrowing to support effective management of cash flow operations of the organization by way of a bylaw. This is a usual matter as Ms. Hale's report describes, but Fran, do you have any comments to make on this for council?
No, I feel the report is self-explanatory and it's an annual bylaw that we passed. I've often thought not to do it, but our bank does like to have it in place, and it just provides us with that assurity that if we needed it, we could call on it.
Great, thank you. Any questions or first comments from council? Okay, we're not seeing any, so let's have a look at the resolution here. The bylaw number 22-2020. It says 2020, should it be 2021? Okay, we'll fix here. Bylaw number 22-2021 being a bylaw to authorize the borrowing of money to meet 2021 operating expenditures of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Behrens to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I will make that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Anstett, will you be our seconder for that one?
Yes, I would second that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. And it's slowed down. And that is carried. There we go. We got a little technology lag in that one. That's exciting. All right, that's carried. Thank you. We have no reports tonight then from our environmental services, operations, or fire departments, which allows us to move down to item 5.8 on our agenda. Tonight we have this extra agenda item. It's been with us the last couple of meetings, giving us the opportunity as a council to review the business plans of our departments. Tonight we'll consider another 2 business plans. First, we'll have the opportunity to consider the business plan of the finance department, which includes a dedicated staff addressing cash management, accounting, financial planning and policy, financial analysis, information technology, corporate reception, and at least for a bit longer, Perth Meadows. I'm going to call on Manager of Finance and Treasurer Frances Hale to present us our mandate for the review, and then entertain a discussion and debate on her business plan. And her department's business plan. Among other purposes, Council, it's our responsibility, our opportunity to validate the key tactics that are in the plan, to identify places where we can pause or remove actions that, based on current workload projections, will overload this team. Let's use the same facilitated methodology as last time. First, we're going to hear from Ms. Hale. Then we'll focus on resolving any information needs, getting our questions answered, our uncertainties cleared up so that we have the information that we need to make some suggestions and move into brainstorming. Then we'll turn into idea generation and brainstorming to identify what might be changed and how. And finally, we create a summary of potential considerations for staff, roll that up into a resolution for them, which invites them to bring back an amended report an updated plan. As we did during our first business plan review, Council, I propose that we suspend the rules of procedure for the balance of the business plan discussions for item 5.8. I'm going to invite a resolution for that purpose then, that we suspend the rules of procedure for item 5.8. Councillor Duncan, can I call on you to serve as our mover for that one?
Yes, I'll move that.
Thank you. Councillor Johnston, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I would second that.
Thank you. I'm hoping that I didn't catch Deputy Clerk Beer by surprise here. Danette, if you have something for us to vote on, then trigger it. If not, I can call for a manual vote. Jeez, look at that. And we're missing one vote. Councillor Barnes, we haven't trapped your vote. What say you? Oh, have we lost Councillor Barnes? Councillor Barnes, are you with us? Okay, so, we're not receiving response from Councillor Barnes. Declare her absent for this vote, and hope that she is. Councillor Barnes, we thought we lost you. What say you on this motion for suspending the rules of procedure for this item? No, okay, so we're not seeing a response, either audio or through eScribe for Councillor Barnes. Let's declare her absent temporarily, and we'll call this item carried. Thank you. All right, so given that I've already sort of described where we're going and how we're going about this, that we've done this a few times, let's call on Ms. Hale to present the business plan for the finance group, and then we'll ask our questions and think through our options. Ms. Hale, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mayor Kaysenberg. Tonight I'll be presenting the business plan for the Finance Department for 2021. The plan outlines the regular and project work for 2021 and sorts out what resources we have and what we don't have to complete this work. Council is familiar with our structure and our services for the Finance Department. The new plan has been laid out in such a way that the IT function is separated from the other finance services, and so that it can be easily split out one from the other when any structural changes in the organization take place. This plan is different from previous plans in that we have documented staff resources by hours to each service for both regular and project functions. I'd like to take you now to page 11 of the plan. And it outlines the numbers that we have for the work to be done. If you want me to go over the individual pieces in terms of our projects or what we're contributing to or what we're supporting, I'd be more than happy to do that. But I'm sure you are familiar with it, not only from our department, but from the other departments that you've seen. So on page 11, we are itemizing sort of our regular finance work that we're doing and the hours that it takes and the hours that we're projecting that we are needing to perform the work that we've laid out. If you go down a couple pages then to the IT, the same thing has been identified there as well. Council's quite familiar, I'm sure, with the fact that there's been a fair bit of pressure on our information technology services within the organization. COVID has brought that out for us, and quite frankly, I don't see that will be reduced that much. We've increased not only our devices that the two gentlemen are looking after right now, but we're also looking towards more efficiencies and the demand of our customers to be able to do things online, that sort of thing. So I only see that this particular department or section of our department will be definitely using these hours in the future, and that what was added in 2019 and 2020 were fairly significant at this time, and that's keeping in mind that these two particular employees are working 40 hours too, so at some point that might be something that we would need to look at to be having them work 35. It's a very demanding job. It really takes a lot of focus and for the majority of what they do for us. And I only see that this will be increased, especially as all the other services in the organization are increasing, and we're adding staff and we're adding devices. This definitely will be something that will be an expanding department to support all the other departments and the other side of the department in finance. If I can take you back actually though to page 11, I feel that, sorry, Pat, I feel that that clustering of combined hours that you see there, I think that I need to do more analysis in terms of what each section is in terms of hours. We've done a pretty good job. I've been working with staff trying to figure out what those particular functions have within them and how many hours. As council's fully aware, doesn't mean that it predicts and anticipates every possible change. And we really don't have a lot of padding in our hours for the unexpected, such as COVID, such as downtime, if there's an IT problem, which we don't very often have, customer queries that are sort of unanticipated or out of the norm, those sorts of things that need to be addressed. I also feel that with the recent economic pressures over, I'm picking on 2008, but over the last few years and in consideration of our ongoing and growth that we've been experiencing, we've typically added tasks, we've added service levels, you know, we've not only do things by paper, but we also do them electronically, and we do them in 3 different electronic ways. You can pay online, you can pay, and all these things offer us some time savings, but they also create some effort to keep them in place and doing 3 procedures instead of 1, as well as not to mention the volumes that we've been added. We've always kind of assumed that if we worked harder and more efficiently, we could keep up and that someday it would settle down a little bit. Well, that hasn't really occurred. And I really think staff has given it their all to keep up. But I also feel that we have cut corners on our analysis and on our detail review, and that going forward that we need to look at that more closely for our business plans for 2021 to make sure we have some of these items identified, like splitting our duties, internal audit, risk management. One thing I don't think I took adequately into consideration was training. We've always had staff train the new staff or cross-train. I think sometimes we have to go back and actually have training from the product, just because it's developed sometimes over time as well. And one of the reasons probably 2020 that I didn't have as many extra hours as I might have in some areas is that some of our staff didn't take holidays. They were saving them. And so I am going to be experiencing a catch up at some point in time as well. As something we've also taken advantage of in finance and IT, and whether we look at it in terms of continuing it or trying to end it, we do have some external support and consulting. IT, one thing it does is it gives us a variety of expertise, sort of like, if I might liken it to a specialist for your doctor. Our guys are the general practitioners, but occasionally they need to have some expertise. And so keeping that consulting or external support to some degree I feel is advantageous, but there are places where we should be bringing some of it in-house and cultivating our own expertise in that regard. There are one item in the projects that is highlighted, both in IT and in the finance section, is the HR accounts or HR payroll project. And at this point in time, I feel that we're going to have a hard time meeting that in 2021 until our HR gets more support and until Perth Meadows is removed from our payroll staff. I feel it'll be pretty hard for us to really take that on at this point in time. So I don't really want to take it off the agenda, and that if some of these restructurings that are taking place as what you saw this evening, that will certainly free up the regular time for more time to be spent on this project work at this point in time. But that I'll leave that for council consideration. I would like to leave it on the docket, but with the idea that it just might not get to it just unless some of the other corporate structure moves take place in 2021, early in the year. So at this point in time, if there's anything else council feels I need to go over, I'd be more than happy to, or trying to address some questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hale. Councillors, as I said, our process is let's ask some questions first about missing information or things we didn't understand about the plan and that we'd like to have clarified. So let's focus on those question components and getting out the information that we want first. And then after that, we'll turn our attention to brainstorming and drilling into opportunities for changes in this plan that we might recommend to the finance department to evaluate and bring back to this council. So do we have any questions of matters of fact at this point that councillors have expressed interest in? Clerk Griffiths, do you have a list? Councillor Andreessen, let's start with you.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Todd. I can just feel the anxiety in your voice, Ms. Hale. It's so hard to, say no to things, isn't it? And so hard to kind of compartmentalize things to say that, well, we won't be doing this, or we can't fit this in. My question, though, is just to dig a little bit deeper around what you did highlight, and that is with the HR payroll software system that you indicated could be an area that could be deferred to another year, another time. I guess my question is what is the impact of that? If we defer it, could there be some potential problems if we don't do that this year? I just kind of want to know the pros and cons of that. Thanks a lot.
Through you, Mayor Kasenberg. We have been told by our auditors that there is an audit issue with regard to our payroll, and so therefore we do want to address it. We did have an arrangement with the current vendor, and so we're coming up on the third year, and so we would like to move forward on that particular project. Because of the potential issue with audit. And I believe it's in our financial statements the past 2 years that is an issue. And so the sooner we can address it, the better. I do believe that there will be some efficiencies as well in between the HR package and the payroll package that both staff or both areas would really benefit from. And it would also provide us with a lot more security in terms of what is required for controls within our system for accounting.
Thank you. Councillor Rothwell next.
Thanks, Mayor Todd. Through you to Fran. Thanks for your presentation, Fran. My question, you talked a little bit here about Perth Meadows and coming off finance. Could you elaborate a little bit more about that? I believe there's still going to be a finance component involved in that, but if you could just elaborate just a little bit more, thank you.
My understanding, and I haven't had the opportunity to discuss this with Chris and Jen thoroughly enough at this point in time, but certainly the additional hours that are from Karen's perspective would then disappear. Right now, she's looking after working with the staff, the part-time staff that we have cleaning and looking after the maintenance of the gardens and that sort of thing, and the contracts that we have. I would do the contract, but then Karen would take the calls if the contractor didn't show up, that sort of thing. So I'm anticipating that that would all be taken over by the facilities area that you were presented to this evening. The only thing I might say is that there's a bit of a trick with the accounting for the reserved funding. And so, I mean, I would still be brought in on that particular aspect, but in terms of, you know, showing the units and preparing the units for new occupants and signing the leases, I think that would all be still handled by the facilities structure. But that I still think we have some things to hash out, and I know it's not going to be instantaneous once the position's in place. I think there'll be a transition period where that will happen over 2021, and quite frankly, looking forward to it. I am not an expert on facilities, and neither is Karen, or Kate wasn't either, but certainly after working with it for a while, you get it. But it just makes so much more sense to be under a facilities venue for sure. Yeah. Looking forward.
Thanks, I agree. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell and Ms. Hale. Councillor Seiler, I think, is next. Questions, Terry?
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Just to pick up on the comment with the Perth Metals there, appreciate your comments there, Fran, and whatnot. And I'm just trying to think how this is all going to come down and how Perth Metals will be run properly, because it is a fairly big project there, and yet I know Karen puts in a lot of hours with the different tenants there and whatnot, and trying to fill the units and then do the buyouts or whatever. I just don't know how that's all going to entail with the time of one person as a facility operator for the whole municipality. So like you say, it'll be interesting in seeing how this all plays out. I just hope that we can keep enough time at Perth Meadows to do the job right that we're doing right now, and the board has did a good job in trying to keep this place running at a good pace and whatnot. So I think we just wait and see where it all goes. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Seiler. I have a question, actually, just so I understand. With regards to the costs that the municipality incurs in staff time to administer affairs of Perth Meadows, are we essentially charging it back? Like, is it sort of a closed envelope financial environment that that we're managing there, and that staff time is sort of charged out at reasonable rates?
All except for my time, but certainly every other staff member charges their rate to that rate structure, and so it's to be cost recovered. I was at some point going to be considering my own time to add to it. But at this point, I think that's something that we'll leave for the facilities manager to sort out with the committee or board or with council in terms of cost recovery. But all the other staff, Karen and our cleaners and our gardeners and our contractors are all recovered from the fees paid for by the occupants. They pay taxes as well.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I understood that. So it's some of your time that we haven't quite figured out, and that could soon be someone else's time from your answer. Any other questions around facts and figures and information about this? Okay, we're not seeing any questions or comments there. So, Ms. Hale, you've highlighted the one project, the HR payroll software, and effort would be required from your department to get that up and running in general terms and highlight it as a possible deferral. If we deferred that, can you just summarize for us the apparent deficits in staffing in terms of full-time equivalents for both your direct group and IT, which, as you said, you sort of segregated out for the sake of us seeing it clearly?
Yes, it would, given the estimated hours that we plan to invest in it, it would save us about 290 to 300 hours of work. So it is substantial at this point in time. But as I have said, I'd still like to leave it on the docket. I don't believe that we would get it all done in 2021, but certainly some of it would be hopefully in this year. But unless council feels that we should completely defer it till 2022.
Thanks, but not quite what I was trying to get at.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries. I was trying to get at what additional staffing component do you need? Like if you were to say to council, I need X people based on this plan. I know you've got those numbers in there, but let's have it out verbally in our meetings so we can understand.
Okay. So almost it's 0.82 and roughly a half for finance, but 0.82 is for IT. And I have in my budget a half person to hire an IT person partway through 2021. It has not been taken to HR for consideration, but it is in the IT budget for 2021 to bring on a third person. It seems really fast given that Simon has only been with us since April of 19, but that was long overdue, and I feel that we need to keep moving forward with this. As I outlined, not only the devices have increased, but our other departments are requiring more, and I see them as being their own entity. That their time under finance probably, and I mean, this is something for HR and Chris and council to consider, but their time under finance is probably coming to a close, and they really need to be their own service cost center element, so that I see in 2022, depending on where we are in the restructuring of the organization, that that might be something council and the department will consider at that time, depending on where we are in the restructuring. But I really do see that I need the assistance with IT, and that we can't let fall by the wayside. The other, I feel that quite frankly, that we can cope with, and especially during the pandemic time here, we are saving some time at the front counter, but then we're picking up time on the phone. So that is balancing itself out to some degree. but certainly by those paying online, and that's also making us more efficient. So there's a combination of some efficiencies happening too. I also see that some of the new software applications, therefore moving the hours to IT possibly, will save us in some of the other functions that we're doing. I'm really hoping that payroll will be less of a data input and more of an analysis situation in the next 3 to 5 years as we move forward with going more paperless. The thing is, when we change up and have all these new things, we still have the old way for some of our vendors that haven't converted. And so it makes for some double work, as similar to what we have with payments. We not only take cash and checks and post-dated checks, we also do online and pre-authorized. And so in the savings, it's great, but there's also then it takes us more time to do all the separate functions to have that level of service as well. So.
Okay. I mean, I think I heard some hints in your comments about streamlining opportunities, and I think that's valuable. But let's see if I was following what you're telling me. You're saying that you think at a minimum we need to add a half-time, 50% FTE, 0.5 FTE for IT services. So someone who has IT qualifications, professional skill set, and maybe another half-time person to support general financial operations activities. And have I got that roughly right?
Yes, actually, if Pat, can you go back to the, I'm just can't remember it off the top of my head, but in the report, it does identify what the actual EFTs are at the very first page, like the actual written report.
Right. That's there it is. Okay.
So it's 0.42 and 0.84. So pretty much another IT person. And we can possibly endure the 0.42. We're Chris makes fun of me because I use the word transition a lot, but right now we've taken over some things like the dog tag function, more following through on the financial part of that for clerks, but then they've taken over some of the things for us. And I actually see that possibly we could have some continued delegation so that instead of all involving 2 or 3 people, we involve 2 or 1. I even, with our own department, I'm going to be bringing back some things to council to authorize some of my staff to sign donation receipts instead of it having to be me, those sorts of things, so that there's some responsibility. They're doing the function, the responsibility is there, and mine would be more of an oversee and advice, and they would actually be delegated the authority to move forward with it without having to always have that that extra staff person that maybe isn't adding any value to the situation.
Okay, one last kick at this. I just want to be sure. So you've put some money, you've indicated you put some money into your budget for the purposes of IT staff augmentation already.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So if I look at what you've said you can kind of get by on the finance side, probably maybe there was sort of that 0.42 for finance, and you figure you might be able to, through efficiencies and other sacrifices perhaps, get there. But the IT piece is pretty important.
Yes.
So if, come back to my premise, maybe my numbers are wrong, but my premise remains. If council were to consider an additional full-time staff person, that person would be sort of enriched IT. They would have IT skill sets, but they could have 0.25 of their time spent on some other duty in finance that would shift that balance. Does that sound right? Like, am I?
Yes, I'm after 1.25 persons, but I would
If we give
given
you
that
one.
given the skill sets are quite different, often one from the other, that I'd want to focus on IT in this particular year.
But if we gave you one and you could find one that had mostly IT, but did a little like a specific theme or train of action, would that probably solve the need that you're proposing?
Yes,
Okay.
I'd be very happy.
Okay, but you've put some money aside already, yes?
Yes.
Can you
For
give
a
us
half
a
of-
sense? Half. Okay, so really, if you're following my bouncing ball, then we need another half FTE for you to achieve this outcome that would make you. I don't want to quote you, enormously happy, very happy.
Well, I guess keeping in mind though, the only reason I only budgeted for half a person was I wasn't anticipating council approval for this until after the budget was passed and then after a hiring process. So I didn't see that, but it would be a full-time person that I'd be hiring. It'd be a full FTE that I'd want to hire for IT. So I don't want to create an illusion here. I'm after a full IT person. It's just that given that it's not going to probably happen till mid-year, that's why I only budgeted for a half, but I'm after a full IT person.
But your numbers actually say that you need 0.84, which is pretty close. And I'm suggesting that perhaps we solve both of your problems with a single hire, one FTE, who has 0.75 IT impacts and 0.25 some other theme that you pick that will relieve someone else's workload and make it reasonable for everybody else.
I can live with that.
You could live with that. Okay. So I've done a lot of talking here. I shouldn't dominate this. I'm just trying to do some brainstorming. Council, anyone have other comments or ideas or thoughts about how to approach this? I think there's little question that IT is an important core function of our municipality. And we see what happens, and we've seen what happens around us when it's not attended to assiduously. So we need to be quite careful about the recommendations that are coming when our staff tells us we need more IT capacity. Councillor Andreessen, you're next.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Through you, I did take a really close look at the report from Finance and IT, and I could not find anywhere, in my opinion, that we could kind of, slice and dice and take some items out. I have to agree, this is one area that we should not be, scrimping on. And the demands on the workload in finance and IT are just so high at this time that I would agree that supplementing these departments with additional staffing would be really, really what we should be facing. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Andreessen. Remember, a council, in the context of our discussions about these business plans, we also have to have that, 10,000 feet above the ground kind of view, right? And that view, we've been getting the other business plans lined up and asking questions about how many people need to be added, knowing that we've allocated some money already in 2021, if this budget passes, towards staff augmentation in key areas. And I think we had always assumed that there'd be a process of arm wrestling that's happening. But, on this one, to me, this one feels pretty important and probably needs to be addressed. And in terms of the arm wrestling, Fran, I guess I'm wishing that you have very big muscles.
I feel that council has been moving us along very well. And given that our growth is happening and the efficiencies are all happening at the same time, it definitely has been a moving target for us to see all of it. I also think, I think as a corporation, we've been realizing that, you know, we can do this for you and you can do that for us, and it makes it a lot more efficient as well. So I see that happening more. GIS is a huge item for finance. I know it was brought up of some of the other reports identified it, and I'm sure that my colleague Lyndon is going to talk about it a fair bit as well, but that is key. We've hung our asset management plans on it, and I know every other department is quite keen as well. And I can see where once we have a better fix on that, that we need to identify, you know, where that staff person falls, whether it's in public works or finance or recreation. As long as it's getting done, it could be under IT as well. As long as it's happening, because that is one thing that we can't drop the ball on again. So, I think council already recognized that that was vital in other conversations. So I don't really feel I need to bring it up again. I'm just underlining it and reinforcing that one as being key as well. So it's got to happen somewhere, and it's just got to happen. That GIS has got to be well staffed.
Okay, thank you. Your 0.84 and 0.42, which I'm kind of whacking down to 1 in my premise, that does not include the GIS function. That is workload outside the GIS function. I just want to make sure that's clear, right?
Right.
Okay, thank you. Council, any other ideas, brainstorming around this? Councillor Barron's next.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Just picking up on a comment from Fran that this is somewhat of a moving target here with bringing other staff on board. And she spoke of, we will have a new IT person, you know, on board for, you know, hopefully half a year type thing. Maybe it would be better to look at what specialized skills do we need next year at this time. I have an issue with trying to hire one person to do many jobs, especially when anyone in information technology is usually highly skilled and honed in on that area. And in fairness to the finance department, finance is, you know, not the other side of the brain, but it's a different skill set as well. So I think with bringing on the facilities manager this year, bringing on the IT person, we can take a look at next year, or maybe even at the end of the year, what is it that we really need and what skill set do we need in the departments? Because as Fran mentioned, like GIS is something completely different, but it seems to go more in line with an IT department than it would anything else. So I'm not really for hiring one person to do a multitude of tasks when the skill sets are so completely different. Thank you.
If I might follow up with that, I agree with Councillor Barron's on that, but one thing that we've struggled with is in IT is the inventory, and Simon has been helping Eric keeping that in line. And we used to have that in the finance side, so looking after the licensing and doing some of the administration. But it's making a lot of sense, Councillor Barron's, for that to continue in IT. And so I kind of see where that is floating over to that. They're dealing with it, they're buying it, so they're licensing it. And quite honestly, some of the licensing is kind of tricky to understand because this company will do it this way, this company will do it another way. And Eric and Simon have to be fully aware of how that's happening as they buy and sell, or not sell, but buy and utilize that on a daily basis. and when they upgrade it and all those sorts of things. So it's not something they can just pass off to other staff, which we were trying to do in the past. It's something that they really need to keep a hold of. So from that perspective, I feel we can fill in that fairly easily. As I said, we were trying to do that from the finance staff for IT, but it's making a lot more sense for IT to actually do it themselves. And they're doing an excellent job as well on the inventory, and much better than we were struggling with that before. As you move forward and you don't have enough staff, you start to neglect some of the things that are harder to do, or don't seem relevant in the moment. And that was always one of them, was to keep a good inventory, and licensing is vital too. We were lagging behind and having some issues with some of our suppliers, and we're caught up to date now. I'd hate to lose that going forward as well. So I feel we could in this instance, but I totally agree that trying to have someone with too many conflicting jobs is not the best result, because we try and dedicate certain people in finance to do that for Eric in the past before Simon was hired, and it just wasn't a good fit. It was hard to it was hard to work with.
Thanks. I don't get me wrong. I do not advocate trying to find unicorns all over the place, and I think that's what perhaps is the risk here, is when you start, carving jobs up and saying, well, you're going to do half time this and half time that, and you do have fundamentally different skill sets, then there's a problem, as Councillor Behrens has outlined.
Yes.
You probably won't find that beast. Two, if you do, you might drive that person crazy, and the organization crazy, trying to figure out how to tease out the roles and responsibilities. So, given what you've said, though, Ms. Hale, that seems like an opportunity. It seems like we've kind of already shifted what was traditionally a finance action or realm of action to some of our IT team, because it's highly specialized. And so that extra IT person that I've sort of crafted as a possibility just contributes to that pool of people who can work on that former finance action that is now essentially delegated to IT or moved to IT on a permanent basis. Okay. I got that right?
Yes, I'd say it's happening very well, and therefore we have had a lot of extra hours into IT because of that, and because of remote council meetings too, like some of the things that have been taking place with pandemic. We've ended up with quite a few extra hours in IT for sure. So, but the short answer is yes, Mayor, I think you've got it.
Okay. Do we have CAO Snell, would you like to make some comments?
I'm just going to kind of basically reiterate and what you just said. I don't think we're looking for a unicorn. And I think the process of this is, once we go through all the business plans, we'll then prioritize what's needed across the corporation. And of course, all these plans will have to come back to council and through HR to be augmented. But I think the benefit of this is looking at these business plans in this detail this time around, in conjunction with our possible reorganization. I think will allow us to further specialize some of our areas, because I know we have gotten in trouble in the past from trying to have one person wears too many hats, and it becomes difficult. Thanks.
I thought you were just describing yourself, CAO Snell. Yeah, okay. So are there any other ideas or recommendations from council that we should incorporate before we wrap up our review of the finance department's plan and give some guidance to finance for how to renovate the plan for our next view of it? Anyone else have anything? So what I took what I took as notes is council may well consent to the HR software integrated payroll replacement, allowing that to be deferred to next year. It didn't sound like it was a particularly huge impact problem, and it also sounds like the organization needs to sort of catch up with staffing in HR and so forth. So that may be one suggestion that we go ahead and act on that. And the other thing that I sort of took is that there's a very reasonable need for an extra person in IT. That's what I did. Council, does that sound like what you heard too? Anyone have anything else that I missed? Okay, so I think our resolution here is to invite the treasurer to return a business plan that addresses those two functions. One, it perhaps gives us the final considerations with regards to deferring the HR software and integrated payroll rollout this year, and confirms whether it's reasonable to defer. And the second is that it makes a recommendation towards the addition of one IT person to augment the staff. All right, let's put that to the test here. To that end, there was something of a motion in there. I hope Danette got it. Councillor Rothwell, will you serve as our that one?
Also move yes.
Thank you. And Councillor Seiler, will you be our seconder for that one?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thanks. Council, any discussion, further debate, further ideas at this point? Anything that we're missing? Okay, so let's have a vote. I'm hoping Danette has something for us here. We talked so long that e-scribe logged some people out, maybe. There's 7. What are we missing? Councillor Barons, we're not getting your vote. What say you? Councillor Barons, can you hear us?
She's in there.
I believe my vote is in there.
Oh, is it? Okay, your vote's there. So, okay, there it is. Thank you. Sorry about that. So that's carried. Thank you. All right, that allows us to turn to our second review for the evening. This is regarding the Operations and Public Works Department. This department attends to road allowance, maintenance, and construction, including bridges and culverts, drainage and stormwater management, cemetery operations and management, and development review and management. And we have Mr. Couch with us tonight. He is our manager of operations. This represents a plan on behalf of his department, and I believe we'll use the same approach again. Mr. Couch, walk us through some of the key things you want to draw our attention to, and then we'll open to some questions about matters of fact and information, and then we'll move on to sort of brainstorming and supporting your thinking in terms of what comes next. So, Mr. Couch, carry it away.
Thank you, Mayor. The report outlined hours of service, basically, as the other reports have in terms of our functionality. If you look at the comments, it does just reiterate the areas that we are responsible for the municipality. In summary, I'm going to refer to this quite a bit. There's operational work that we do and operational overtime, which currently exists. An example of operational overtime is winter control when there's a storm on the weekend or a storm very early in the morning and we respond to it through overtime. That's operational. And then there is something I'm going to call strategic. This is all about the strategic plan. And then there's strategic time that's needed to move the municipality forward in directions that we aren't covering or that we're setting as a goal. So that's strategic. That's where all the red and all the yellow squares are when we look at our projects that are ahead. Are they strategic for the department or not? And just in summary, the reds and the yellows, when we get to them, I put a whole bunch of them down. Basically, the way I looked at those are later on in the reports when we get to the plan itself. If you drop that ball sometime during the year and it happens, you'd understand that you would still survive and that your operational activities and your core function would still move forward. And that's the way I looked at the yellows and the reds and reviewed it with staff. But getting to the report itself specifically, we saw that there were, and this is summarized, I think, on page 7 of the actual report. And we could probably move there, Pat, because there's not much text in this report, but it's just a study of the hours. And I think it should be on your page 7 as well. It just looks at our total service hours there. Yeah, right there. Oh, that's great. So in the middle column, the estimated overtime 950 and 220 hours. That's our, call outs for broken signs, call outs for traffic lights not working on the weekend, call outs for winter storms, 950 and 220 hours. If you go back to the report, we came down to, what was around the 0.7 full-time equivalent, about a 0.7 need. And that did not include those hours of overtime and service that we have in our listings. So that's what our department is going to wind up at. You can certainly round that up to one whole position. These are really conservative numbers as we went through them. We probably did not take into account all the hours that we would spend on these projects and that other staff in combination would spend on them. But what I could do from here is, I believe, Pat, we're going to move back to page 4 of this report. If we could, thank you. And in general, the departments were laid out in a way that we talked about where we lead, where we contribute, and where we support for all of our strategic goals. And it does outline, and the more we looked at it, the more you understood that it's a good way to take a look at where we need to go and what we do not have in terms of staff resources to do it. So page 4 talks about corporate priorities, leading, and these are some of the projects, the large ones that we've been tasked in the strategic plan, transportation master plan, reviewing the core infrastructure program, and then finally the GIS usage. And it's already been spoken to in terms of what the GIS program is. It's very vital to the asset management program because there's no way of cataloging what you have in terms of the value and resources that you have in place, the infrastructure, except through GIS. So Becky and I talk every day about the infrastructure and how to catalog it, how to know how old it is, and how we replace it. And the function that is used for the asset management plan to catalog it all is the GIS. So as much as some departments wouldn't use it, many basically use it every day. And the engineering, public works, water division, environmental services use it every day. We've contributed some part-time staff hours and costs to it already. We get external help through a consultant to move the GIS program forward. We're actually sitting on a group that's looking at the services of GIS from the county and reviewing the terms of reference in terms of what they're doing, what their GIS will provide, but also what our own internal GIS systems will do in terms of asset management. So I will mention GIS many times through the course of the next few minutes. If we move forward, I'm on page 5, but we can go to page yeah, let's move back to page 7. When we start looking at some of the listings of the hours that we had down on page 7, more towards the bottom, and I'll just give you an example. If we look at that 4.1.1, preserve and promote a vibrant and attractive downtown. So when you look at that, there's 80 hours of base time. It's probably shy. That will involve several projects. That's involving looking at the previous streetscape project, for example, getting an engineering firm to do a more detailed analysis of whether that's feasible, how you would phase a job like that, and if you were to revitalize the core in general from an engineering perspective, has anything changed? Do we have to replace sanitary, sewer, water systems? If we do, we're going to have to also look at analyzing and videoing those, for example, seeing what's the status of the infrastructure, but more importantly, what the cost of a project like that and how many years it would take would be. So that's preserving and promoting a vibrant downtown core. I said there'd be 24 extra overtime hours. If we went to any kind of a public information process in an evening and staff were involved, that's where hours would go in. Total hours, 100 hours for that project. It also would include things such as the removal of the one-way lane on Wallace Street South in that 104 hours. So those are the kinds of breakdowns that are involved. Now, perhaps Mayor Kasenberg can help me with this, but I mean, I can walk through the reds and the yellows if we want to walk through them briefly. There's a number of them, or I could just summarize them now. What's your preference on that?
Why don't you start at the top level and just sort of roll up what those yellow and reds yield to us? And then if we have specific questions, we can ask councillors to ask them and get the information they need.
Yeah, very good. Pat, we'll scroll through these fairly quickly, but the first red item, get greenhouse gas activities, not important to the department, but you know, it's only listed as 2 hours. It was listed as not something essential that we would contribute time to this year. The yellow ones under communicate committed services and service levels. We are involved with that. We've already contributed time towards the reorg and making comments on it, but not core to our operational activities. Those could stay or leave. I consider the yellow as a bit of a warning light that I may not be able to contribute all the time that would be asked of the department in that area. 3.13, AOTA, that's accessible guidelines. That's already provided in functions that we perform through our design work and through Ontario provincial standards in terms of accessibility, stoplights, our crosswalks, audibles, all of these things are accessibility oriented in terms of what we do in terms of our design work. So although there's other things going on, we're reviewing that with general operations every day in terms of new builds. So that's why it's yellow. Then we could move down to 1.4.1, support preservation and sustainment of productive agricultural lands. Yes, again, just not a core item for the engineering department. We know it's core for the organization, but I had dropped that one off. 2.2.1, explore opportunities to optimize the delivery of committed services. Probably led more from another department. We would participate in it, but not essential to operations. 4.3.1, promote improvement of internet connectivity. We could assist through doing some analysis of where pole locations are or other infrastructure that could assist in that one, but I did not list it as a priority for the department given the breadth of everything else that's on here. If we move down further, we might have hit the bottom of what yeah, okay, there's the summary. And these are really the big projects that are strategic in terms of the operations that are happening and capital programming. I put Atwood Water Servicing as a warning light. I had only put it there because of the fact that we're coordinating with higher levels of government and their timeline may not be known to us. And if that's the case, they are the road authority. It would be threatened. We'd not be able to continue if they don't move forward with their work or comment on our work. It does look like they are making some comment and we might move forward with that project in some way this year, and I'll give council more updates. The master servicing study. This is a good time to talk about how strategic we're actually being. And I made some notes as Fran was talking just about strategic, you know, what are we doing? We're doing a transportation master plan. It's going to come to fruition by the end of this year with a draft report in the middle of the year. It's going to tell us, you know, how we access the community, how we move through North Perth, both as a pedestrian, as a cyclist, and as a person that wants to bypass the core, let's say, or drive straight through the core and know what an arterial road is or a collector road or what residential roads are. It's expanded to say, where do we want to calm traffic and where do we want to stop traffic and where do we want to move traffic to? So that's a plan that's very strategic and in place. There's a sanitary storm and water master plan system that we're looking through master servicing planning as well. That is going to be initiated through this year and introduced, and that's what that is. Possibly the amalgamation of a stormwater master plan that would include water and sanitary in it. So lots of planning going on, and it's very fitting that these would be getting conducted through 2021 and 2022 to give council direction on all of this infrastructure. It's going to help the asset management program as well. So really, that's the summary. There's not much more to outline. Just by way of an example, 3 years ago, we started looking at our culverts because they'd never been analyzed as one of the assets. And I had asked the drainage superintendent to look at how many culverts we have on municipal drains because they aren't part of our infrastructure that's known. And then through asset management saying that we need to look at all of our infrastructure and we need to do it quickly. Over the last year, we were able to analyze every one of them and we found that there's 200 pipes out there that we had never really put down as knowing that they were of any value or knowing that they were even logged. Came to just over $2 million worth of infrastructure. And as I said, there's 200 of them. We found that 25 of them are so large and so complex that they have to be looked at by an engineer, and with our other review that we do every 2 years. So that's, you know, one of the last areas of infrastructure that we didn't have analyzed. There are still more to go. Every time we do this, it means somebody has to inspect them, somebody has to maintain them, somebody has to actually repair them or replace them. It's all additional work. And it's not something that we planned for 3 years ago, and it's not something that we really have added capacity for right now. So this is a good plan. I'll leave you knowing that the GIS and that the development side of the engineering department is where we're lacking staff in terms of coordinating development, both within our own world of responsibilities in terms of staging and phasing of working with the agreement and the developers and the builders, but also as we coordinate with other departments. Development is something that clerks touches on all the time. It's something we touch on, and it's something that finance touches on. I would say that the deputy clerk has done a great job of showing that relationship in one large spreadsheet, populating it and actually doing the work and keeping up with it. There's room to get more staffing involved in that process as well. So that's the summary. And if there's more information needed or questions on these specifics, I'd be more than willing to answer it.
Thanks, Mr. Couch. My first question, I have a question immediately. Certainly Treasurer Hale talked about GIS. We've heard Ms. Gangle talk about GIS. We've heard Mr. Hackett talk about GIS. And now we've heard you talk about GIS. And so I guess I find myself a little puzzled at this point about who's taking this bull by the horns in terms of our staffing complement to address GIS. And I believe I've heard before that there's a desire to sort of disseminate capability around GIS through a number of different staff functions and departments, because it would be a good idea that everybody has some capability. But is there a real pressing need for a dedicated GIS specialist in this organization? And if so, is it coming from your department, or where does it fit? And maybe CAO Snell needs to weigh in on this one too. Actually, maybe we could ask CAO Snell to start with. CAO Snell, would you like to answer that one?
Well, I'm not sure I have all the answer as of right now. As Lyndon mentioned, we are meeting as a working group at the staff level with the County of Perth to determine what they're going to offer as far as services regionally, and what functionality they're going to provide all the municipalities. And then at that point, then I think we'll have to address what we need internally, which could include a staff person. But as of right now, that's basically been sort of managed by Public Works with support from other departments through the use of a consultant.
Okay. So what are the consultant costs that we've been incurring in the average year, if that's even a fair question, with regards to GIS services that we purchase?
Between $12,000 and $20,000 would be the average expense in terms of actual GIS input. Every time we do a new street and have as-built drawings, it all needs to be converted into the GIS and have values attributed to it through the finance department. So every water valve, etc., gets cataloged, and that GIS specialist does that. They're also doing the layout of the overall GIS system with us and mapping it. So, but the budget this year, $15,000.
And how does the county factor into this, just so that I understand the role? Because I mean, they manage quite a rich GIS system, right?
They do, and we don't, because the GIS is so many things to so many different people. We don't have a trail network that's going to be mapped on the GIS that the Engineering and Public Works Department needs. For example, the kind of open data that you'll see through the GIS could do so many different things. It could show people where the washrooms are, or it can catalog every one of your sanitary sewers in the municipality. That's the one that I'm talking about, and the one that we spend our time working on. We have another student that's been hired through and with finance, and they're spending virtually every hour of the day cataloging the infrastructure and making sure that it's speaking to the financial asset management system and assisting with that pickup. And they're going to be very busy and continue to be busy on that probably for the remainder of the year.
I admit to a little bit of naivety on this. I don't know how GIS works very clearly. Do we maintain essentially our own instance of GIS and the county maintains a different one? Or are we sort of on the same platform? We add layers and that kind of stuff.
I guess I can try and answer that question. So as of right now, we basically are trying to add layers to the county platform, and that's why we need to have this meeting and decide who's doing what. So at this time, we're collecting a whole bunch of our own data and our own layers. But the problem is, up until now, there hasn't been a way that the county staff can keep up to our needs as far as adding all that information to their data set. So we actually either need to come to an agreement, like for example, in Oxford County, I can tell you how it works in Oxford County. The lower tiers have access to their county GIS licensing, and they maintain their own data on the county GIS site through an agreement. So we just need to look at other models out there that can work, and then we need to just see how they are staffed appropriately.
Okay, so what I'm not exactly hearing is that we're ready to make a proposition around a staff person or a part of a staff person for GIS. I know they're very difficult people to find from what I've told, but it sounds like that even though all the business plans have circled GIS as a core capability that we need to have, we're not quite at the point where we can say what we need is GIS one person. Is that, have I got that roughly right?
I think that's fair. I would say we're still sort of in the exploratory mode.
Okay, so 2021 might be an exploratory year, which includes negotiations with the county and other lower tier municipalities as part of this working group, which includes opportunity for us to consider fully our needs and document them well so that we can build a case for whether we need to continue with outsourcing or whether we need a person in-house or whether we distribute this role in various ways in-house. Have I got that roughly right?
Yeah, and that's correct. And I think that the challenge from this is our GIS needs are very different than say per South. And I don't think I need to get into that necessarily any more than that, but the varying needs across the 4 member municipalities are very widely. So it's going to be a challenge.
Okay, so Lyndon, just one more question from me, and then I'll let my peers get in on this. So the last question I have for you is then, you talked about a 0.7 full-time equivalent need roughly. If you were asked tomorrow to sort of identify what that role would be, and bearing in mind Councillor Barron's earlier comments that unicorns are difficult, do you have sort of a sense of where that person would fit and what duties you would assign?
Yeah, and again, it's difficult because I'm going to give you multiple areas. It again is development, coordination, it's GIS, and it's probably, I mentioned storm for a reason, it would be stormwater management as well. So there's those areas of infrastructure that we need to coordinate, but it's development and actually the amount of site plan review and the work we do around it, coordination with the other departments, keeping up with all of the inspection work we do, et cetera, and the documentation behind it. I think that's where the greatest need is. So I would say it's more development and site plan engineering and review.
Okay, so it does sound like a multicolored unicorn.
Yeah, primarily with the growth. I think that's where the greatest amount of service and support we need for the community is in terms of the department, but also, yeah, GIS and storm work.
Okay. Pat, I need to shut up here. Who's next? Councillor Burns, you're next. Sorry to keep you waiting.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg, through you. First of all, I made no mention of unicorns. To me, they're a fantasy animal that lives in a different realm. So I just wanted to ask Lyndon, Um, and it could be just maybe looking at it too long, Lyndon. I'm not understanding the hours that you suggested that you lack in capacity. Is the 1,100 hours that you mentioned in your report the same 1,170 hours for the summer, winter operational?
Yes, the 1100 just would show you that those hours we're already spending operationally that are additional, that are part of the overall group of 2550 over.
Okay, I don't understand where you're getting
Well,
the 2550 over then.
again, I just wanted to separate those out because they're part of like additional hours. If you go to the very last page and you look at the total remaining over capacity hours, there's 2,500 hours listed there.
Yes, I understand that, Lyndon, but what I'm not understanding is where do you get them? Because basically you're adding, in the way that this sheet is done, is that to get the capacity hours, you're adding the base hours for department projects and strategic projects to the total hours. So in your normal operating year, you don't give any hours whatsoever to strategic planning or department projects.
I don't have the math or sorry, I don't have the spreadsheet open that shows me how the calculation was made. I did that on the base form.
Okay.
So that would be right though. The way we put the business plans together, projects and strategic plans are separate from operations. So there should not be any project or strategic plan in the operations part. And you're correct, Councilor Behrens.
Okay, thank you. But can we, okay, I'm just slightly confused at this one, but I think the other ones all had how many people they had, what the total hours should be. But something is not looking right here. I don't question that you need someone for operations. I'm just, maybe it's just the hour. My apology.
What I could say is I wanted to recognize that some of this extra time and overtime was necessary and already there, much as what the Environmental Services Department had said and deducted it from an overall total. But the 2550 shows the disparity or the shortfall in overall hours for our general. Is it strategic, Chris? Is that the word to use for the column?
Well, I think what you're saying is your overtime's created mostly by unplanned work, like winter storms, and it's hard to ever budget for that or even add staff for those functions in some ways. But you're still about 1,400 hours over capacity across your department if you take out those overtime hours.
Yeah, those ones we'd have to hire full-time crews 24/7, 7 days a week to cover that cost, which we don't need to do. It's more economical to pay the overtime.
Much like Mark explained when we talk about environmental services.
Exactly.
The only way to get away from that is to have 24/7 staffing, which, as Lyndon says, is not realistic.
Okay, let's turn to Councillor Rothwell next.
Yes, thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and through you to Lyndon. And maybe this is just a general comment. I think the clear issue is this, in my view, is that I think there needs to be, as you've alluded to, Mayor Todd, more full understanding of exactly the capacities of the program, GIS program at the county. There has been for quite some time the ability for North Perth staff to have access to the county's GIS for at least this last 6 years. And that program that's currently in operation has been there for the last 2.5 years. It's a tip of the iceberg which is being used here currently. That program was the basis upon which all of the asset management work was converted over to GIS. So I think there needs to be a fuller understanding of exactly the capabilities of the existing program and the abilities of current staff to utilize the program. So I won't get into any further details, but I would encourage or agree with the mayor's comment and CEO Snell's comment that additional time and understanding of the current system, the abilities of staff to utilize the current GIS may shed light in terms of what we need here in North Perth. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else, Clerk Bearfields? Okay, we're not seeing anybody. I didn't really walk away with a whole lot of actionables that the council had recommended for your consideration, Mr. Coach. I get that there is sort of a desire for, you know, essentially another full-time equivalent in your department that would support GIS and storm, I heard you say, and growth and coordinating development reviews and all that kind of stuff. So you know, maybe there needs to be greater clarity in the expression of your plan to that end, that that's the kind of role that you're thinking about creating. But I didn't hear a lot else other than our general assessment that GIS needs to be thought through, but we also understand that that's going to take a little bit of time and a little bit of a process. You talked about the oranges and the reds. I think council, unless you squawk at me now, I think we should say that the reds sound like they're things you can act on, that you can remove from the plan. The yellows you sort of explained represent different scenarios possibly that may or may not come to pass. And so I guess I urge you to use appropriate caution in bringing back a final draft of your plan with regards to the orange. Council, any of you object to my summary there? Did I get it roughly right? Okay, I'm not seeing anything in the chat window on that, so I think we got it roughly right. Let's have a resolution just to that effect. Again, you know, Linda, we want you to use your judgment on the orange lines, all right? What you think is necessary, you let us know. So I have a resolution. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth directs staff to make the following revisions to the 2021 Public Works Business Plan. You heard the few things that we talked about. There wasn't a huge list. Can I call on Councillor Andreessen to be our mover for that one?
Yes, I'll make that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. And Councillor Anstett, will you serve as a seconder for that one?
Yes, I would second that. Thank you.
I know it's a little vague, but there wasn't a whole lot to whack at there, I don't think. Okay, any further discussion or debate on this resolution? Okay, seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. Council, that brings us to the end of section 5. Did you want to take a 5-minute health break at this point? And we pick up, I know that we have a closed session meeting ahead, which may take a little bit of time, so it might be a good time for a break at this point. Anyone significantly object? Okay, 5 minutes. Let's come back at 9:40. Okay, Council, we'll call you back to the table. And the mayor is grateful for the brief break. So that brings us to item 6 on our agenda. And for item 6.1, councillors, are there any reports you would like to ask of our staff or of our committees? Again, the usual process, express your interest through the chat function, and I'll call on you as appropriate. Anyone? Councillor Andreessen.
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor Todd. This request is probably going to be directed to Public Works, to Lyndon Couch. Just had some inquiries from a number of residents just regarding the painting of lines on paved rural roads in North Perth, and what the history of that has been, and what the current thinking is around that. A number of residents are expressing some concerns about that in terms of just road sharing with vehicles. So yeah, I'm just interested in hearing a report about that. Thank you.
Mr. Couch, you're still with us, I hope?
Yes, I'm right here.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to give a verbal response to that, or is this something that you'd like direction for from council for a full report to be returned?
I have to apologize. I just turned on my audio and I missed the beginning of the question, Councillor.
Okay, Councillor Andreessen, do you want to just sort of summarize that question again?
Sure, absolutely. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, I've had some inquiries through a number of residents in rural Wallace areas regarding the painting of lines on paved rural roads. And I don't necessarily need a report tonight, but just wondering about what the history of that is in our rural roads here in our municipality, and what the current thinking is in terms of painting those the middle line on those roads. The reason for that is that a number of residents feel that a line could help with more road sharing in terms of you know, when traffic is moving on those roads and sharing the roads, so to speak. And perhaps learning more about you know, what the thinking is, or what the philosophy is around those roads, and a middle line would be great. Thank you.
So, Mr. Couch, did you want to give a brief answer, or do you want direction to bring back a more thorough report?
Yeah, there isn't a North Perth policy that speaks to that specifically, but the engineers, as we've done road rebuilds and reconstruction, they've made some recommendations, and also the province has some standards on classifications of roads. Basically, our class 3 roads, for example, like 165 that would see more than 2,500 cars a day, have had a widened platform and paint added. There are some other rural roads that we're going to do traffic counts on this year, hopefully, if the traffic comes back to normal levels, that will help us in determining what roads could have additional paint for yellow lines. As far as whether it's required or not, I'll have to look into the regulations more as I bring back a report for that, and I can talk about what could be added or what would not be added to that list.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you for looking into that. I really appreciate it.
Okay, so Councillor Andreessen, from a procedural perspective, we should have a resolution directing staff to bring back a report on this if we're going to ask for an escalation. Did you want to so move?
Yes, I'd like to make that motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask at large, any other councillor wish to second this? Just identify in the chat function. First name we'll pick. We're not seeing anything. Okay, Councillor Anstead. Thank you, Councillor Anstead. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have a duly moved and seconded motion that would invite the manager of operations to return a report to this council on the subject of line painting on rural paved roads. Any discussion or debate? Okay, I don't know, Deputy Clerk Beer, do you have something for us? Yeah, look at that. Let's have the vote. Okay, so council, that's carried. Council's consented to that. Any other requests around reports from staff or from committees? Right, we'll move on. For item 7, we have received no additional correspondence not already covered earlier in the consent agenda that requires council action or disposition. That brings us to item 8. We've dealt with the bylaws earlier, and one more, the bylaw at the end of the meeting, the confirmatory bylaw. So we have nothing else to bring forward in that section of the agenda. That brings us to agenda item number 9. Are there any notices of motion from councillors attending this evening? If yes, please indicate in the chat function. Okay, we're not seeing any indication of that. That brings us to item 10 on our agenda. For item 10.1, are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? If you'd like the opportunity to speak, please so indicate in the web chat window. Is Ms. Gangle still with us? I think I'd like to invite Ms. Gangle to make an announcement about our new seniors support program. Did you want to jump in there, Amy?
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor Kiesenberg. Yes, our Lonely No More program, we've done a launch press release inviting volunteers to help with the program. We've invited all members of the community, and we've also sent invitations to council and staff to be part of this. This week will be some additional training, but there is an opportunity for some e-learning. Great opportunity for connectivist coaching. It is the first phase of becoming a Lonely No More volunteer. However, it can also be used in our day-to-day lives. You don't have to be a volunteer of that program. We are going to be participating this week, and the next stage of volunteers will be getting their training so that they can pursue offering this program for North Perth.
Thanks very much, Ms. Gangle. You know my enthusiasm for this program. Next is Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks, Mayor Todd. I just want to, I don't want to steal your thunder, but I'm just want to let council as well as the public know that at least in North Perth, that you have rejoined as an appointment from Perth County Council onto the Here in Perth Public Health Board, replacing Councillor Herlick, who resigned. So I appreciate that you stepped forward to be willing to represent Perth County on our Huron Perth Public Health Board, and look forward to your ongoing commitment to upholding the public health orders and mandates to get us through the rest of this pandemic. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Councillor Rothwell. Any other announcements? I saw a report today. I'm pleased to report to council that I did see a report today. I still think it's preliminary and we have a little bit more to go. That our coldest night of the year walk to this point has raised just shy of $60,000. And that money will be used in our community and for other related causes that the United Way supports. But there is certainly a priority project that a local subcommittee has established to create the circumstances and get running a warming center in the winter of 2021, so next year, next winter. I think that's a pretty outstanding accomplishment. to raise that kind of funds in the first go at this event is really impressive. I thank our North Perth team, Councillor Rothwell, salute you. Councillor Andreessen, salute you. Mr. Snell, salute you. And Mr. Snell's family was involved too. So my thanks to them as well. I think we're well represented. Any other announcements for the benefit of the community? Okay, that brings us to agenda item number 11. We do have one matter to be considered in a closed session of council. I'm going to bring forward the resolution for our consideration that can allow that to happen. So the resolution reads as follows: that this committee proceed in camera at 9:51 p.m. To address a matter pertaining to the receiving of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose regarding Line 81 Bridge Project. Can I call on Councillor Behrens to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I will move that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan, will you be our seconder for that one?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that's carried. That means that we are out of public session and we'll enter into an in-camera session of council at this point in time. Those on the call who are not invited to participate in the proceedings of the closed session may exit at this time. We will just do brief reconfiguration and we'll be back with council in this closed session momentarily. Just everyone hold on for a few moments. Goes there. And that one goes there. Now we just need to see if we're back on YouTube. We're okay. Anyone have the ability to check? Just Simon.
I can check.
We're good.
We're good. We're back on. Okay. Thank you very much, Theo Snell. So that brings us, we've completed our closed session meeting. For item 12, which is a report on that closed session, we have nothing to report at this time. Council, as a mandated good practice, acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions and business of its meeting through what is called the confirmatory bylaw. I have the draft of the same, which reads as follows. Bylaw number 23-2021, being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the council of the municipality of North Perth, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed. Said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Anstead, can I call on you to be our mover for that one?
Not for the confirmatory.
I'm sorry, I did it again. One of these days I'll figure this out. Honestly, I pledge that I will. Councillor Duncan, I think you're our man of the moment here. Will you serve as our mover for the confirmatory?
I certainly will.
And Councillor Rothwell, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Are there any discussions, debates, anything we need to talk about on that one? Are there any opposed? Please indicate in the chat function. We've given due time. I think we can call that carried then. Councillors, we've completed the deliberation and taken action on the business. Whoa. Sorry, Clerk Bearfeld's pulled her headphone out. That was exciting. We've completed deliberation, taken the action on the business that's come before us tonight. Before I read a motion to adjourn, is there any further business? We're not seeing any, so I have a motion to adjourn, which reads as follows. The council meeting adjourns at 10:19 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, March 1st, 2021 at 7 p.m. Can I call on Councillor Behrens to be our mover for that one?
Yes, I will move that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Johnston, will you serve as our second?
Definitely, I would second that.
It's not debatable. Are there any opposed? Then that is carried. This council will meet again in its next regular meeting using, again, our digital enabling technologies next Monday night, March 1st, 2021. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, council, for due attention. Have a good night.
Night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.